So at the beginning of GTA Vice City, they say that Tommy Vercetti got 15 years for killing 11 men. And this being taken place in GTA games, everything is like over-exaggerated because 15 years for killing that many men seems way too little. Like he should have gotten life in prison or even executed. But for all I know, I'm not a law guy, is this actually based in realism? Like, is there a way that killing 11 men leads to only 15 years? Like, the only thing I could think of is killing in self-defense because they were tipped off that he was there and they were all there to kill him, and then maybe combine that with good behavior, but then again, I don't know if any of this is realistic at all. Alright, so here's something about the Mega Man series I never understood, that being the fact that in Japan it's called Rockman. And this doesn't make sense to me because his name is Rock, yes, but he turns into Mega Man. And with this, I just don't understand why they would name the series after his normal identity, instead of what he calls himself when he becomes the super fighting robot. I mean, this would be like the equivalent of calling Batman Bruce Man or something like that. But I guess the only caveat I could think of is the fact that I never played any of the Japanese versions, so for all I know, they never call him Mega Man. Either that or they just really wanted to drive home the whole rock, paper, scissors thing with these games. So in Fallout New Vegas, you could play through the game on something that's called hardcore mode. And during this mode, you would need to like regularly eat, drink, and sleep in order to keep yourself like alive. As well as some other things that made it harder, like the fact that you couldn't restore broken limbs when sleeping, you actually needed to go to a doctor or use a doctor's bag. And I believe your companions could also just straight up die instead of like going unconscious. But having said all that, I feel as though there was one missed opportunity to make this truly like actually hardcore. That would be by simply disabling the ability to fast travel. Because think about it, you wouldn't have the safety net available anymore in order to like just instantly go somewhere. Like instead you would need to properly prepare yourself for the many treks throughout the wasteland. And if you didn't, it would get so bad that possibly you would need to restart the game. Now that's hardcore. Alright, so in Warlords you need to destroy other people's walls in order to like destroy their kings or whatever. And you do this with the fireballs that the game spawns in. And I mean, I get it, the fireball is so powerful that it could destroy walls. But whenever I played this game as a kid, or even today honestly, it always seemed like the walls were made of foam. Not only because of how easily they get chipped away, but also because of their bright neon colors. So growing up, I didn't really have that many games to play, and so because of this, I kind of replayed the games that I did have like over and over again. And it's not like these games were bad or I disliked them, it's just that, well, I just overplayed them. Like so much to the point that playing them now kind of feels almost pointless, since they're like so ingrained in my mind. And so it feels like almost I want to say that it would be appropriate to like retire some of these games from being played so I can move on to new ones. But at the end of the day, I guess it's all up to me. I can pull out these games and start playing them again if I really want to. So in Paper Mario 2, there's audiences that watch your battles, and they can interact with the battle, like them running up and like turning on a fog machine or throwing you items. But there are also certain enemies or bosses that actually interact with the audience, like Hooktail just straight up eating them, or Magnus von Grapple using them as ammunition. And since basically all these moments are like scripted, my question is, if you have no audience members when they happen, what happens then? Like, will the game try and force in audience members so it could work properly? Or will it just act like nothing is wrong? Or I guess there's option 3 of it just soft locking, but I highly doubt that. So I recently decided to check out the infamous Mighty No. 9, and its infamy is due to less the game itself and more like all the stuff that surrounds it. And I say that because playing it many years after all the stuff that happened with it, it's not that bad of a game, because for me at least, it hits this weird sweet spot between average and below average. Because the game itself is just perfectly fine, it's just like, there's stuff like the controls are a bit sluggish or rough around the edges, and the main gimmick of you absorbing the robots is like overused. Then to top this whole meteoric mess off, this game was hyped up to be the replacement for the Mega Man series. And well, I bring this all up because it reminded me of another game with all these issues. That being Sonic 4, and my conclusion is that Mighty No. 9 is the Sonic 4 of the Mega Man series.
Alright, so in the Roller Coaster Tycoon games, you could always mess around with the guests in your park, like with the ability of picking them up and putting them down or renaming them. But infamously, there's also the fact that you could just straight up kill them, and this can happen within one of two ways. Either by having a ride crash or having a guest drown. And well, I bring this all up because I have a question related to this. That being, is it possible for guests to drown naturally? Because you can have a roller coaster crash naturally if it's not built right. But to my knowledge, the only way to make a guest drown is by dragging and dropping them in the water yourself, and I'm just wondering if this could happen any other way, or if this is just it. I always loved this little detail in the Tropico games, where whenever you put down roads, they always start off as dirt roads, but once you put down a building and it gets completed, it ends up becoming a paved road. And I just always liked how this was a small, indicator of progress in your city, of it becoming more built up and, modernized. So I played Sonic Adventure and I liked it, but when I played it, it was the Xbox 360 version, which everyone knows is a broken version for some reason. Well, maybe less broken and more just unpolished, somehow worse than the Dreamcast version. But I bring this all up because I went into it knowing it was an inferior version. But I really gotta say, it would've sucked if I didn't go into this game knowledgeable about it, because the first level just gives the worst first impression, and you probably already know exactly what I'm talking about. It being that stupid loop-de-loop that for no reason tries to push you out of the world and kill you. And it's just how the hell did this stay in here and no one caught this and fixed it? And then to think a first-time player is playing through this and how this event would sour not only this game but possibly the entire series for them. I always liked this little detail in the Batman Arkham games whenever you got into a fight. And within this brawl, if there was a Riddler informant, the game would purposely not have you attack them. And this is great because obviously you want to leave them for last so you can get information out of them. And this is especially even better when you realize how hectic some of these battles can get, and how easily you could accidentally knock the informant out. So now you really don't need to play it as safe and precise as you otherwise would have really needed to. And in the end still get rewarded by capturing your marked man. I always loved this little detail in the GTA games, where whenever you jacked a taxi cab, your money would go up a little bit, and that was because you're jacking a taxi. You're not only taking the car, but also the cab fare, so it would make sense for your character to get an extra little bonus whenever he does this. Alright, so with Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the big thing with this game was the fact that you had an exosuit. And the whole entire idea with the suit is that you could, not only double jump, but, you would also be much stronger. Specifically at one point in the game, you have to move an entire van to use it as cover. Or literally another point in the game where you get ran over, but still, live. And well, I bring this all up because in the mission where you get captured and lose your exosuit, something ridiculous happens. That being the fact that a character who got captured with you manages to kill someone with an exosuit. And it's just the fact that, there's no struggle at all. He does it so easily, when in reality, with all that stuff I just listed, he really shouldn't have survived that encounter. Alright, so in GoldenEye's second level facility, there's a locked door that you can't access normally. Instead, you have to go to this terminal and use it to unlock it. But when I was a kid, I did not know that was what you were supposed to do. Instead, in this mission, I always thought you had to wait for a scientist who always runs to the bathroom and then you have to get a key card off of him. And well, I bring this up because part of me wants to get mad at myself for not noticing the simple solution to opening that door. While on the other hand, I want to give major props to Rare, and the fact that they had a contingency plan for people like me who got stuck. Although I will say it always felt like an eternity waiting for this scientist. You know, with a name like Duke Nukem Manhattan Project, you'd think that this entire game would take place within New York. You know, running through the streets of it, going on top of high buildings, and maybe going to some big-name landmarks. And there is some of that in this game, it's just that it's not, the majority of it. Instead of running through the city, you're gonna be running through, a facility, or a drilling platform, or even outer space. And there's nothing wrong with that on its own, it's just that with a game based in New York, you'd think there'd be more in New York in it. You know, instead of going to outer space for the final battle, instead have it on top of the Empire State Building. Or I guess if this game had come out earlier, it would have a more appropriate final battle on top of the World Trade Center. When it comes to comparing Dead Rising 2 and Off the Record, well, they're both great games. But of course, Off the Record is going to have the edge out here gameplay-wise because it's like a more refined Dead Rising 2, plus it has a whole bunch of new stuff added into it. Like with the new weapons, bosses, and the entire theme park area they added in. But I only specify all this with the gameplay because I honestly feel like that Dead Rising 2's story is still better than Off the Records, because it just feels much more cohesive with Chuck needing to clear his name and being like the #1 wanted man by all the psychopaths. And then you have Off the Record, which kind of just feels like Frank being there just to be there since he's not being the one blamed in this version. And because of that, the story just doesn't feel as right, and some of the psychopath boss fights feel forced. I wasn't the brightest kid growing up, and today's example is when I played Super Mario World. That is because, for the longest time, I had no clue how to beat Bowser. Yeah, no, I never realized that you were supposed to throw the Mecha Troopas at him. I would just instead, just get rid of him. Until one day I just randomly threw it up there, and then he got hit by it. And in that stroke of luck moment, I finally realized how you're actually supposed to beat him. Makes me wonder how much longer would it took me to figure this out if I didn't do that. I find it interesting to go and play games that are notoriously bad, and to see after all the dust has settled if they truly are as bad as people say, or if they were just games that were under par and got hated more than they should have. And the results have kind of been, well, mixed, I guess. I've played Sonic 4, Duke Nukem Forever, and Mighty No. 9, and although those aren't really the greatest of games, they're nowhere near like the worst of all time. But then I've played Sonic 06 and Dead Rising 4, and good lord, those games suck. But I definitely gotta say the most shocking results is when I bought a Kinect, since you know all Kinect games are crap because the thing just doesn't work. But if you actually sit down and properly work with it to get it working, Kinect games are honestly really fun to play. Alright, so in the older Call of Duty games, there was a perk limit where you were only allowed to drink 4 perks. And this was kind of annoying on certain maps because there were many different perks to choose from, and you would always lose a slot to Juggernog. And while this is true for me too on most maps, there is one map in particular where this is actually not the case. That being Mob of the Dead, because this map only has 5 perks. And well, that reason always compels me to get the other 4 perks that aren't Juggernog. So whenever I play this map, I'm like a glass cannon, and the only defense point I have to rely on is the shield, and I suppose Electric Cherry as well. So in GTA Vice City, there's a few missions that you do for the fictional band Love Fist, and this band had a few songs that were featured on V-Rock. And this is honestly really neat. Rockstar went out of their way to create original music for this game. So I gotta say that it's kind of honestly disappointing to go from this to San Andreas, because this time you're working alongside a fictional rapper named Mad Dog. And well, his music does not appear on the rap stations. And I mean, that just kind of sucks, because I feel like since he's played by an actual rapper, it would be really easy to have him do a song for the game. But for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. You can't properly play an arcade game outside of an actual arcade, because when you play a version of it at your home, it just doesn't work. Whether it be on an arcade collection or an emulator or even like an actual arcade machine itself. And that is for one of 2 reasons. Either you're gonna play a game where you have unlimited amount of quarters so you could just keep continuing, or you're gonna play a version that you only have 1 quarter. And once you lose all your lives, you're just done for. And both of these options are antithetical to what an arcade game actually is, since you'll have either unlimited money or just 1 quarter, as well as denying the true arcade experience of going in with a limited amount of money and trying to make it last as long as possible. So in Sonic 3, you're going after the Chaos Emeralds once again, and once you get them, you unlock Super Sonic. But once you make it to the Sonic and Knuckles part of the game, you lose them all, and now you need to collect all the Hyper Emeralds to unlock Hyper Sonic. But most importantly, you need to get all the emeralds in order to get to the secret final boss. Except not really, because I bring this all up because Sega did a really cool thing with this game. That being the fact that if you manage to get the original 7 Chaos Emeralds but not all the Hyper Emeralds, you still get into the final boss. And it's just really neat that they allow you to do this, and they even added in a slightly different good ending to the game. So, SpongeBob Employee of the Month is a classic game from my childhood, it being a point-and-click adventure game. And well, for as much nostalgia I have for it, there's always been something that always bugged me about it even back when I was a kid. That being the fact that in the story for the game, SpongeBob is not awarded Employee of the Month. Instead, he is given the award of Employee of the Year. And it's just like, why is it named Month when it's all about him being for a whole year? Couldn't they have just renamed the game? Or just maybe have the plot point that he is the Employee of the Month instead of the year, so something stupid like this doesn't end up happening? In the Fallout games, you have the ability to listen to the radio on your Pip-Boy. And well, this is nice. You get to listen to some neat tunes while you're out adventuring across the wasteland. But I gotta be completely honest, I kinda have mixed emotions with it, because it just doesn't gel well with most of the places that you'll be exploring. Because you'll be going into a whole lot of abandoned buildings and walking long, lonesome roads. And well, the desolate atmosphere that those places create just don't work for me when you're going into them with blaring upbeat jazz music. I own a sizable gaming collection, and well, having collected all this stuff, I've kind of learned something. That being that you're never always going to get 100% what you want, like with the actual games themselves, unless you're willing to fork out extra money. Like you won't get the box or the case for the game. And well, when it comes to cartridge games, I'm perfectly fine with that for the most part, but not necessarily when it comes to disc games. Like if I don't have the box itself, or an instruction manual, or even the right box, or even the right instruction manual, and well, it just feels incomplete. But at the same time, there are just certain games that I find not as often as others, so I just try to scoop them up regardless of what they're missing. But anyway, that wraps up Random Gaming Thoughts number 300. I can't believe I made this many.